Hey everybody, it's Bobby Lamarco, the Fantasy Football X Factor, bringing you the Fantasy Football Databank for Week 5. So we dive into all the start sits, go into detailed matchups. Now, the 1 p.m. games, you already kind of recorded. If you want to check that out, go to Apple Podcasts. It's the TCK Pod, the Candlestick Kids. I'm on there every Tuesday into Wednesday. We record all the 1 p.m. early games. I'll also start posting it on here as well, so you'll be able to check that out. But just to kind of run through the 1 p.m. starts, before we dive into the later games. So right off the bat, I'm just going to run through these pretty quick. So I kind of went over this stuff on the podcast in more detail. If you want to hear it, you go check it out on Apple Podcasts. It's the TCK Pod, the Candlestick Kids. So Jaguars-Texans game, I love James Robinson. He should be in your DFS lineups. That's how much I love him. DJ Chark will see shadow coverage this week from Bradley Roby. So he's still a play. He's still a start. We just saw Adam Thielen torch this team on the outside, so I'm okay with DJ Chark this week. On the other side, Will Fuller, it's a lot of question marks. So the Jaguars just lost slot corner DJ Hayden, but he also plays a lot on the outside as well. And then CJ Henderson, their star rookie corner, is also banged up. So Will Fuller, I think, to me, is still a start in this game. I think you can play him in this matchup. The guy that's a sleeper in this game is probably Randall Cobb. We have seen the Jaguars allow a lot of production inside to the slot. So I'm thinking Randall Cobb could have a really nice day, especially with slot corner DJ Hayden out of this game. So if you're looking for a wide receiver 3 DFS dart throw, it's Randall Cobb. And then David Johnson, for me, is also a start. I'm not a biggest fan of Deshaun Watson or Gardner Minshew in this game. This should be a lower pass volume game. But if Henderson is out, and then there's a much more optimism for this team to throw. So if Henderson's out, Hayden is out, then I would say Deshaun Watson is a go for me. On the next game is the Bengals versus the Ravens. Just to run through this, it's a big spread game. So the Ravens are heavy favorites. This is a good game matchup for, of course, you're starting Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, but the other two main guys, Mark Ingram and Marquise Hollywood-Brown, especially Marquise Hollywood-Brown, this is a very good game for him. We have seen the outside receivers dominate the Cincinnati Bengals in past weeks, so I really like Marquise Hollywood-Brown to kind of shake loose, maybe even get a touchdown in this one for the first time this season. And Mark Ingram, it is what it is, game flow. We know that they could be up a couple scores, and he might not touch the ball a lot in the second half. Unfortunately, if you drafted Mark Ingram, I personally did in 2 of my leagues, you have to start him in these matchups. This is a great run game matchup against Cincinnati. They do get Geno Atkins back this week, which is big news, but they're still pretty banged up on the defensive line. And then on the Cincinnati Bengals side, I really like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd because of game flow. We just talked about how they're almost 2 touchdown underdogs in this game. So I do think Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins rack up a lot of volume in this game. They get a lot of opportunities late. So I'm starting both those guys in season long. And on DraftKings, T. Higgins is actually a pretty good value. I would actually put T. Higgins in my DFS lineup this week. And also Marquise Hollywood-Brown, I think, is a DFS play as well. Falcons versus the Panthers. A lot of injuries to the Falcons offense. Julio might not play. Calvin Ridley's also banged up. In this scenario, I lean Russell Gage over Hayden Hurst. The Carolina Panthers have not allowed a lot of production to the tight end this season. They have allowed decent production to the slot receiver. So I lean Russell Gage over Hayden Hurst to get the beneficiary if Julio is out. If Julio is in, Calvin Ridley is in, you're starting those guys. I'm also fading Matt Ryan. I don't think he's going to be really good unless Julio is playing and Calvin Ridley in this matchup. Now, for the running back, Todd Gurley, Carolina has been terrible up until Kenyon Drake last week. I think Todd Gurley can get it done on the ground. I think you start Todd Gurley with confidence in this one. As for the Carolina Panthers, Mike Davis, you're going to keep rolling with him. I know Teddy Bridgewater is a pretty popular DFS guy. There is a lot of injuries to the Falcons secondary, especially at safety, so I do like Robbie Anderson. I think he's a DFS play this week. He's become the true 1A versus DJ Moore. So I think this is a get-right game for DJ Moore as well. So I like Moore, I like Anderson, and I like Mike Davis. Teddy B is a borderline QB1. I have other guys that we'll talk about later that I'm a little bit higher on if you're looking to stream a quarterback. Next game, Raiders and Chiefs. Now, this one's pretty simple for me. It's Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller. Darren Waller, if you can get him in your DFS lineups, last year he went over 100 yards on the road versus Kansas City. Kansas City has struggled to stop tight ends, and on top of all that, there should be a lot of game flow in their favor, especially for Darren Waller. Josh Jacobs, it's going to be hard to get away from him, but they should be able to. I know everyone talks about this. In the early game, Josh Jacobs is going to do well until the game gets out of hand. You know the narrative. I think you still roll with Josh Jacobs. On the other side, I think you're going status quo. Travis Kelce and also Tyreek Hill in this game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire needs to be in your DFS lineups this week. Like, get Clyde Edwards-Helaire in DFS. He is a premier start along with Patrick Mahomes, of course. Patrick Mahomes, you don't need to put in DFS. He's a little bit higher cost, and he may not blow up in this game, but I digress. And then Mecole Hardman is someone that I kind of want to stash on my bench. Last week, he's not running a lot of routes still. He's running like 50% less than Tyreek Hill. So he's not on the field that much, but he looks like he might be catching up to Demarcus Robinson in the routes category. So with his explosiveness and playmaking ability, if they start giving him more of a full-time role, he could definitely be someone to help your fantasy teams down the stretch run. Next game is the Cardinals versus the Jets. This one's kind of easy. It's, you're sticking with your studs. I think Drake, to me, I don't think I want to start Drake. The Jets one thing they do well is stop the run, and the Cardinals' run offense has not been good this year. So I don't even think Drake is a must start in this game, but he's okay. He's a flex RB3 in my opinion. The guys you really want, Kyler Murray, and then Hopkins. Hopkins is probably one of the better starts this week, even in DFS, because of the fact that Jets don't have any notable corners. And the one time this season that they faced a legit outside receiver, they got dominated by Stephon Diggs. So I do think you could start DeAndre Hopkins with confidence in DFS as well. On the other side, it's Jamison Crowder. That is it. I think Joe Flacco is actually a serviceable veteran backup. I don't think he's going to be complete dud. The last 2 seasons in Baltimore, John Brown and him were doing pretty well and producing. And then also last year with Emmanuel Sanders early on in the season before Emmanuel got traded and he got hurt, they were both producing, and Courtland Sutton. So I think Joe Flacco is going to make Jamison Crowder a fine play. I think that you could beat the Arizona Cardinals in the slot. So I would continue to play Jamison Crowder, but that's it. I'm not excited to play anybody else. Just to keep an eye out on Lev Bell to see if he returns. He could be in play, of course, as another RB3/flex if he's actually in the game. On the next game is the Steelers and Eagles. I talked a little bit about this in my shadow coverage report. I expect Darius Slay to shadow Deontay Johnson. So I think this is a big Juju and Eric Ebron game. I think Eric Ebron is one of my starts of the week at tight end. I think it'd be probably Jonnu Smith number 1. Eric Ebron's up there as well for the tight end position, especially in DFS, and along with Hunter Henry. Probably my 3 DFS guys this week. I like Big Ben as well at home. Big Ben at home is always good. So I do want to play Big Ben against Philadelphia, who outside of Darius Slay is extremely beat up in the secondary, and I think they can definitely beat them, especially because the Eagles' run defense is very good, so they're going to have to throw the football. I think James Conner, because of his pass game involvement, is always a start, but I love Big Ben in this matchup. I really do like Juju and Eric Ebron. Deontay Johnson is like a wide receiver for this week. I think his volume is going to keep him safe, like a 6 for 55, 6 for 60, something like that is probably very realistic for him. So I still think he's a wide receiver 4. I think he's going to be a serviceable play, but I would not be high on him to start him in a shallower league. And on the other side, it's Miles Sanders a must start. Even a really bad matchup. The offensive line's really banged up. I don't think you should play him in DFS, but he's, of course, a season-long start. But the guy I actually really do like is Greg Ward. So we have seen the top receivers play pretty well against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they can be beaten. They have allowed a lot of production to quarterbacks. So every quarterback this season has at least 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. So for whatever that's worth, because there's no Alshon, because there is no Deshaun Jackson, I think Greg Ward could be a start for you, especially as a wide receiver 3 this week. So I'm into Greg Ward. Zach Ertz has a horrible matchup against the linebackers and safeties of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think Greg Ward is the one that's going to benefit, and also Miles Sanders in the passing game. And finally, the Rams versus the Washington football team. Now the Rams, for me, it's really, I think Woods over Kupp this week. Cooper Kupp has been the most consistent play. Like every week, he's getting you about 4 or 5 receptions, 60 yards. So he's continually going to give you a nice baseline if he gets in the end zone. Great. So I don't think Kupp is a sit in any way, but I'm not expecting a big game from Cooper Kupp. I think Robert Woods, to me, you've seen more outside receivers produce versus this Washington football team, and of course Tyler Higbee versus Gerald Everett. Now Higbee has the best matchup of anybody, and you would think he would get it done, but the problem is he's splitting snaps. So he's a risky play this week, but he does have a fantastic against the Washington football team, a great matchup. The ground game, it's I want to play Cam Akers. I want to play Malcolm Brown, and I wish there was a more clear picture of who was going to be the true starter. This is the first week we're going to have all 3 guys healthy playing. So I would love to take the wait-and-see approach, but to be honest with you, the ground game is going to be awesome in this one. I think that the Rams can really beat the Washington football team on the ground, especially with the 2 injuries up front. Chase Young should be back this week, but he's still dealing with the groin, so he could be slowed by that. They also lost a defensive tackle, so I do think that Cam Akers probably might be the lead back. He might be startable as a RB3/flex in this game. On the other side, Jalen Ramsey's not shadowing number ones. I don't know why, but the Rams are not using him at all. So we have seen guys like Amari Cooper, for example, have very nice days. Also, the Washington football team is very big underdogs at home. So I think Terry McLaurin's going to get you plenty of volume late in that game. Kyle Allen does know the offense better. He made DJ Moore very fantasy relevant last year. He peppered him with targets last year. It's the deep ball that he's not good at. He's very good at the other neat stuff. So I think Terry McLaurin's going to be great. And I also like Antonio Gibson because of Kyle Allen. So Kyle Allen hyper-targeted Christian McCaffrey. I think they're going to start doing the same. We started seeing more running back targets last week versus the tight end. Logan Thomas has kind of taken a back seat to those guys. So I do really like those. And Isaiah Wright is someone to keep an eye on. He looks like he's emerged as the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. Young rookie, very talented. Big-bodied guy, great compliment to Terry McLaurin. So he could be someone to monitor in deeper leagues. All right, so let's get into the 4 p.m. games. First one's going to be the Dolphins versus the 49ers. And to understand this matchup, the Dolphins are going on the road. They're playing against a 49ers secondary that's completely decimated with injuries. And my thing is they still somehow hold up on defense. I don't know what it is about this 49ers coaching staff. They've done a fantastic job. So really, when you look at the actual plays for the Miami Dolphins, I think it's just Devontae Parker. I think Devontae Parker, very similar to the Arizona Cardinals game with the 49ers when it was all Nuke Hopkins and nobody else did anything. I think that's the exact thing that's going to happen here. Brian Fitzpatrick, to me, is off the streamer radar on the road in San Francisco, but I do like Devontae Parker, especially as big underdogs. There's going to be plenty of volume for him. And I also like Myles Gaskins to get a lot of work. We haven't really seen anybody really perform that well against San Francisco outside of Nuke Hopkins. So I do think that if you're looking at a pass catcher, I don't like Mike Gesicki, Isaiah Ford, Preston Williams. So I think Myles Gaskins could have a nice PPR day out of the backfield. Now, for the other side of the football, it's important to note that the Dolphins will be down one of their offensive tackles, Austin Jackson, the rookie. So that is something worth noting. The 49ers probably have the best run game matchup on the week. So Raheem Mostert comes back, and he gets the Miami Dolphins on a silver platter. I think he could be played in DFS as well. I like Raheem Mostert. I think he's probably my start of the week. I think they dominate this game on the ground. On the receiving core, it's George Kittle and then everybody else. I don't think I'm really excited to start anybody, Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, because Byron Jones is back this week. Xavier Howard seems to starting to find his stride. So the outside boundary corners for this defense are starting to look pretty good. And I do think George Kittle can dominate and the ground game's going to dominate. But I think moving forward, Jimmy Garoppolo, if you're watching this video, go get Jimmy Garoppolo and stash him on his bench. On the bench, his weapons are finally healthy. He's healthy. Raheem Mostert, Jerick McKinnon, Deebo, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, George Kittle. He has the best receiving core he's ever had. And I think he's going to be someone to really monitor. I think he's going to take off and be a great QB1 the rest of the season. As for Jerick McKinnon, it was a nice run, but I think it's over. I think Raheem Mostert's your start, and I think maybe if there is late game garbage time, it's probably still going to be Raheem Mostert. So I don't think Jerick McKinnon's a start for me this week. He got a lot of targets in the game last week. I just don't see that happening against Miami as San Francisco handles their own in this one. Next game we're going to talk about is the Giants versus the Cowboys. And the Giants offense has really struggled, and the Cowboys defense has really struggled. So it's going to be a question of who do you think is going to win what. And I think it's more about the 8.5-point spread for the Giants are big road underdogs versus the Dallas Cowboys. And I think the Cowboys, when you look at them from a holistic standpoint, they've been drop backing to throw 62 times back-to-back weeks. And that is just outrageous volume. That's coming down. So I think this is actually very notable when you look at this matchup that I don't think Dak Prescott and company are going to need to do what they have done the last couple of weeks. I think they're going to establish the ground game. I think Zeke has a very big day on the ground. But I do like Dak, of course, because there's nothing notable about the Giants secondary that scares you. But I don't think he's going for 400 and throwing the ball, dropping back 62 times. So I think you're looking at the pass catchers. Amari Cooper has the toughest matchup against James Bradbury. And Dalton Schultz, who is the surprise tight end one from this offense, I think he actually has a down week. So if you picked up Dalton Schultz to play for TJ Hawkinson or just become your new tight end one, I would pivot to either Eric Ebron, Jonnu Smith, one of those guys, because I really do like them over Dalton Schultz. Outside of that, it's like CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. I think, for me, when you're looking at the Giants secondary, they have been susceptible to slot receivers like Juju in week 1 had the bigger week. So I do like CeeDee Lamb over Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup's playing a lot of, running a lot of deep routes, clear out routes, etc. So, I think with Amari Cooper seeing James Bradbury, I think Michael Gallup is okay as a flex and also CeeDee Lamb. But I think Zeke dominates this game, and I think that's how this game's going to go. I think Amari Cooper's going to do enough versus James Bradbury to be a flex play. I think he's off the DFS radar. But I think really it's going to be Zeke, and I think those pass catchers are just going to have, average days. But for the most part, I'm starting Lamb. I'm starting Gallup in my flex. I'm starting Amari Cooper as a flex, but I'm fading maybe the pass catchers in DFS and just focusing on Zeke in DFS. But for the Giants side, as big road underdogs, I do think that when you're looking at this is an opportunity for Daniel Jones. They've had a very tough schedule. I think Daniel Jones is a streamer QB this week just from volume standpoint. I love Darius Slayton. Slayton and Evan Ingram are two of my guys that I featured in my opportunity analysis. I think you get them in your DFS lineups. I think they both have very big games. We have seen plenty of outside receivers dominate the Dallas Cowboys. We've also seen tight ends produce very well against them as well. So I'm very high on both those guys. I think Golden Tate is a PPR guy. I think he easily gets you 5 receptions in this game as they're trying to play catch up with the Dallas Cowboys. And for the running backs, I think Freeman to me is on the fantasy radar. We have seen teams starting to get it go. We saw the Giants starting to get it go a little bit last week. The Dallas Cowboys have not been formidable on the ground since they lost their middle linebacker, Van Der Esch. So I think you can start Freeman as a low-end, like an RB3/flex. And but the game flow is going to get away from him. But the good news is he did get a lot of receptions last week. So there is an opportunity for him to get you 4 receptions, 30 yards, maybe another 35 on the ground. That's 8-9 points in half-point PPR. Okay, it's serviceable. So that's why I think he's a flex. Next up, Browns versus the Colts. And the Colts have been a product of game flow the last 3 weeks. They have not been in competitive football games. The last week they played the Bears, and that game was ugly on the road, and there wasn't a lot of pass volume in that game. And then also the 2 weeks prior, they also faced the Jets, who they blew out. And I can't remember the team, whatever, off the top of my head, but they just haven't thrown a lot. So I think this game is kind of the get-right spot for T.Y. Hilton. So if you have T.Y. Hilton, this might be the time that he needs to produce. So the Browns' offense has been doing very well. And, of course, Darius Leonard, the stud middle linebacker, is out for the Colts. That's big news for Kareem Hunt. I think you could put Kareem Hunt in your DFS lineups this week, as Darius Leonard is actually is the key cog of that defense. So I think that's big news. As for the other players on the Browns, this is kind of the Colts secondary has been very good. And I think, Odell Beckham, you could still start him. But at the same time, last week I was so high on the Browns. But now they're at home. They're actually +1 at home. So it should be a closer game. I don't think Odell's going off and Jarvis Landry. I don't think Baker's a must-start player either. I think Kareem Hunt's probably the best play of the day for the Cleveland Browns. And then with David Njoku coming back, it kind of muddies the water with Austin Hooper. So I think Odell's a start as a flex. I think Landry's a low-end flex. I'm not too excited for him. I think Kareem Hunt's a start on the Browns side. Baker's off the fantasy radar. As for the Colts, it's the Browns have been very susceptible versus pretty much every pass catcher because they see so much volume. They have been up in games a lot. Cowboys game, Cincinnati, they have been up big. They have seen the second most dropbacks. So I do like the pass volume to go up for the Colts. I think that's why I'm buying T.Y. Hilton. I think Zach Pascal could be a PPR asset this week. He did get 8 targets last week, only got 3 receptions against the Bears, but this week his matchup in the slot versus the Cleveland Browns is very good. So I think he can get you 4 or 5 catches in this one, and it is a solid low-end PPR flex guy. And as for the tight end situation, Trey Burton is the emerging guy. He ran the most routes of any tight end last week. Mo Alley-Cox and Jack Doyle were both on the field. It was Trey Burton. And I think Burton, to me, is someone that, if you're desperate at tight end and if you just want to throw a dart, Trey Burton's the guy. I think he could definitely produce something against this Cleveland's defense that does not stop tight ends at all. So as for the running backs, Anthony Costanzo, the stud left tackle, is out. The Browns have been very good at stopping the run, but one of their defensive tackles is out. So it's kind of a wash between those two, and the Browns overall have been very good stopping the run, but I think you're still rolling with Jonathan Taylor. I think with Nyheim Hines, you have to watch the spread. So if you see the Colts are underdogs, you play Nyheim Hines because he's going to get you pass volume in the pass game. And then for the games that they're close or are favored, I lean Jonathan Taylor. I think it's pretty obvious to do that way. So I think Taylor's still in play this game. I'm not expecting a monster game from Jonathan Taylor, but for season long, you're starting him. Vikings versus Seahawks, the Sunday night game. Now this one should be fun. I'm starting. So in my article, I wrote about Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I love them this week. I think they are DFS starts. I think they're season-long starts. I think Kirk Cousins is probably my streamer quarterback of the week. I know a lot of people talk about his lack of great games in prime time. The last time he played on Sunday night against the Dallas Cowboys last year, he went for 220-2 in a win. So I do believe that on the road against Seattle, I think there is no 12th man, so there is no crowd noise. I think Kirk Cousins can keep up. This offense has been very efficient. I think Justin Jefferson's emergence has really helped skyrocket this team. I think Dalvin Cook could get it done. And, of course, Kyle Rudolph is a good red zone threat. So I'm buying into the Vikings offense this week. Also, the Vikings aren't a major run game matchup versus the Seattle Seahawks. So Dalvin Cook might not dominate on the ground, so they're going to need to throw more. And that's why I really like Kirk Cousins and company. As for the other side, I mean, just DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson. Chris Carson, to me, should be in your DFS lineups this week. They have a top 2 run game matchup according to Football Outsiders run game metrics. So get Russell Wilson in, get DK Metcalf, sprinkle those guys all in. I am all for it. I think the Vikings are a good enough offense to keep up, and I think that this game really gets high scoring, and I think you could play everybody from DK Metcalf to Lockett and Chris Carson in this one. Greg Olsen is okay. He's a low-end tight end 1 because of the potential volume, but he's not my number 1 stream. I've talked about the guys I'd rather stream over Greg Olsen. All right, the Monday night games, Broncos versus the Patriots. This one's really quick. I think no Cam Newton, maybe Drew Lock comes back. There's only 2 guys I really like in this matchup, and it's Jerry Jeudy because he plays a lot in the slot. I think Tim Patrick's going to see a lot of J.C. Jackson with Stephon Gilmore out. I think that, Jerry Jeudy is now the main slot guy. I think that's great news for Jerry Jeudy. I think he's going to be on the PPR radar, have a nice game, maybe get you like 5 receptions or so in this matchup. So I'm okay with Jerry Jeudy as a start. With Noah Fant going down, I'm not excited to start anybody else. And then Melvin Gordon, to me, isn't a must start. I think that when you're looking at Melvin Gordon's situation, guys like James Robinson, obviously you would start over him. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like who's a low-end RB play. I would have to, if you have questions about Melvin Gordon, I would try to pivot if you can. I just think that the one thing that the Patriots are very good at stopping the run, and this is not a good matchup for Melvin Gordon on the ground. He would have to get it done, for example, through the air or something like that. He's not going to get lucky and get that long touchdown like he got against the Jets last week. And as for the Patriots, I think the start of the week on him, this is a great example. I would start Damian Harris over Melvin Gordon. This is a great example. at home. We just saw Damian Harris have a fantastic game against the Chiefs. I think he can do it again at home against the Denver Broncos. So I really like Damian Harris in this matchup. I think they control the game on the ground and with defense. So I think it's a low-scoring affair. I think the Patriots' defense is in play, and that's how I lean. I think the pass catchers, maybe I'm just not interested in all that. So Denver's not a bad defense, so I don't think this is the time where Brian Hoyer is going to overcome all and just dominate. So Damian Harris, Jerry Jeudy, keep it simple. That's it. The actual Monday night game, the Chargers versus Saints, is another fun one. So the Chargers are big road underdogs, +8, and I think that's good news for the pass catchers. I think actually my start of the week at tight end is Hunter Henry. We haven't seen the Saints get dominated by tight ends over and over again. It's also important to monitor the injuries to the Saints secondary. So Marshawn Lattimore, Janoris Jenkins is already ruled out. And if Marshawn Lattimore is out as well, I think Keenan Allen is going to be a fantastic slam dunk play. I even think if Marshawn Lattimore plays, Keenan Allen, is going to play enough in the slot. He's also going to, if Lattimore is not healthy, I think Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry are going to be status quo, perfectly fine and great. I think the interesting thing is who's going to become the pass catcher in the backfield for this offense. So is it going to be a guy like Justin Jackson, or is it going to be Joshua Kelly? And I think my thought is it leans Justin Jackson. So when you're big road underdogs in this game, it's going to have to be done through the air. They're not going to be able to dominate the Saints on the ground. So I think really to me this is a very vital game to understand who's going to become the pass game back. I think Justin Jackson is a very underrated play if he does become the pass game back. The problem is I don't have the answers. So, I wish I did. But at the same time, I'm kind of avoiding the running backs in this one. I like Hunter Henry. I like Keenan Allen. Mike Williams to me is okay too, especially if Marshawn Lattimore shadows Keenan Allen. Then that leaves Mike Williams with basically a fantastic matchup with no Janoris Jenkins. So now that I'm thinking about it, I think Mike Williams, because of this +8, he's starting to get healthy. I think he's actually on the wide receiver 3 map. On the other side, it's Alvin Kamara smash. Drew Brees, I would really like to see Michael Thomas come back, but we just saw Tom Brady light up this Chargers defense, and I think Drew Brees is a start because they're banged up in the Chargers secondary. If Michael Thomas comes back, it's just all systems go. But even if he's not, I think Traquan Smith becomes the guy you want in this matchup. I think he can play very well. He plays a lot in the slot, so I think that's good news for him. And Jared Cook is a name to monitor because the Chargers are terrible against tight ends. And if Jared Cook is back and there's no Michael Thomas, I think he just swoops right back into becoming a tight end 1 in this game. Final game is the Bills and Titans. And, so let's talk about the Bills first. And I think it's pretty simple. I think the Titans secondary, they do have some savvy veteran corners, but I think Diggs and Brown can play very well. So, Malcolm Butler and Jonathan Joseph are both veteran guys. Diggs is in his prime. He could take them any day, and I'm playing Diggs. But I think John Brown, because of the type of player he is, could have a very nice game against these older, slower corners that are probably better suited to face big-bodied guys than versus John Brown. So I'm starting Brown in this one as a wide receiver 3. I don't think I'm going to get too crazy outside of that. Cole Beasley and PPR probably get you another 5 for 50. I think Josh Allen can get it done through the air, but not enough to make him support all 3 guys. So I think John Brown, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen starts. Zach Moss, is he back? And I'm a little concerned because I don't know who's going to be the goal line back. I think it should be Zach Moss. I would say that the ground game should dominate this. I think Devin Singletary and Zach Moss should be able to run well. But with the cloud of dust, we haven't seen who's going to emerge. Did Devin Singletary do enough to be the RB1 versus Zach Moss? I think Zach Moss becomes the goal line guy. That makes it very difficult. So I think in a PPR format, I think Devin Singletary is a fine play. I just don't think – I'm just not sure yet. I just need more data, more information to know how they're going to work these 2 guys. But Singletary is the 1A for now. You play him in a plus matchup against the Tennessee run defense. And then Titans side, no Adam Humphries, no Corey Davis. A.J. Brown is banged up. So I think Jonnu Smith is my favorite – one of my top 2 starts of the week at tight end. The Bills can be beat in the slot and by tight ends. So we've seen that multiple times. So now with Adam Humphries and Corey Davis out, I think they play a lot of 2 tight end sets with Anthony Firkser. And I think John was basically a glorified slot receiver, and he dominates in this game. So I really like Jonnu. Of course, you're going to start Derrick Henry. I think I'm not into Ryan Tannehill with no Corey Davis, no Adam Humphries. I don't think I want to play Tannehill against a Bills defense who has underperformed, but he just doesn't have his weapons. And I think Derrick Henry can dominate on the ground. I think Henry gets right in this one, plays very well, and I love Jonnu Smith. So that's really it, guys. That's all I have for this week in Week 5. I wish you nothing but luck. Please make sure you go subscribe to my YouTube channel at Fantasy Football X Factor. Follow me on Instagram at Fantasy Football X Factor. And follow me on Twitter at FFX Factor. I appreciate you guys. Go make sure you read my articles on ratfootball.rasball.com, the Shadow Coverage Report, and also read my opportunities analysis on Expand the Box Score. Guys, good luck this week. We'll talk soon.